ready to go. Off to Paris, here we go. So it's 4:44 and p.m. and tonight I'm driving to Paris in my new Tesla Model S, and the goal is to get there in one charge. So before I left today, I charged on max range. I've got about 388 kilometers on my battery, so I've got some distance I can do, and the goal is to drive in one go to Paris, and I will charge just before I enter Paris at the IKEA in Paris Nord, where I also have a hotel where I will stay the night, and then tomorrow morning I will drive into Paris for my training, and then I'll drive from Paris directly back to Brussels. So, road trip, Brussels to Paris. Can we do it on one charge? We'll find out tonight. Distance from here, Brussels, I'm actually in Erps, where I live, just outside of Brussels. From Brussels to the IKEA in Paris Nord, my GPS tells me it's 303 kilometers. My current range, typical range, is 386 kilometers. So I should be able to make it quite easy, unless I start speeding, and if I drive too fast, then I will probably not make it. So I'm going to be driving at 111 kilometers an hour on the highway in cruise control, and that should give me a comfortable range to arrive in Paris. So it's 4:59, almost 5 o'clock. Just got in on the E19, and of course this was the perfect time to depart because I'm stuck in traffic. With the electric car, it's not really a problem, because if you're not driving, you're not consuming any energy. Of course, it's annoying for the time it will take to get me to Paris, but I'm not in a hurry, so I'm not so much concerned about that. I still have, let me see here, 292 kilometers to go, and my range tells me that I still have 372 kilometers left, so it should be enough, should not be a problem, especially not at these speeds, because I'm not consuming anything at this point in time. My projected range is actually 999 kilometers because I'm hardly driving, but my average projection is 326 kilometers, which is more than enough. It's now 17:28, so 5:30. I've been driving for about 45 minutes, and now actually I got on the E19, and I have the possibility to drive cruise control, and as planned I'm driving cruise control at 111 kilometers an hour, which is a very comfortable speed. I'm actually on the third lane. Let me see if I need to get to the middle lane for the speed. One person passing by, so that's much better. So there has been some traffic, meaning I've not been able to drive cruise control just until now. My average consumption is 227 watt-hours per kilometer, which is fairly high, mainly because I was not able to drive in cruise control. I'm just passing Nivelles now, the petrol station Nivelles, something I didn't use anymore, petrol stations, which is fun not to use them anymore, and also makes a big difference financially. So let me see, I've got still 258 kilometers to drive, and I still have 333 kilometers of range, so I'm still on target for arriving in Paris with still enough range left. So it's going to be a nice and easy drive from now. It's always straight, and try to stay on cruise control as long as possible, because that really saves energy. If you use the accelerator manually, you always use a bit more energy than if you use cruise control, which is very stable. It's now 17:47. I've been driving for about an hour, and I've cleared a distance of 80 kilometers. I still have 228 kilometers to go, and my range is still good for another 301 kilometers. So I'm still fine. I've got a clearance of 72 kilometers. It's a good margin. I'm almost at the French border. I'm now at Mons, Bergen. So I'll probably eat something when I cross the French border. Find something nice to eat, and then I'll continue my trip to Paris. So far so good. Brussels towards Paris seems to be easy. Cross the Belgian-French border. It's now 6 o'clock on the spot, on the dot. And you see here I'm crossing the border with France right now. So now I'm in France. Welcome to France. And actually the highway speed in France is not 120 as in Belgium, but the maximum highway speed is 130. So I'm thinking of increasing my speed. I'm still driving 111 kilometers an hour in cruise control. I'm still passing a lot of cars, to my own surprise. I still have 202 kilometers to go to the IKEA Arena, and I still have 271 kilometers of range left. So my margin is about 70 kilometers, meaning if I increase my speed, my margin will go down. Since I'm not in a hurry, I'll just stay comfortably at 111 kilometers an hour, and I'll see at my destination how much range I still have left, which I can use maybe when driving back from Paris to Brussels. Maybe increasing the speed a little bit, trying to figure out what is the right amount of speed with the impact versus kilometers of range. But so, we're in France now, driving for about an hour and 15 minutes. Since Belgium is a small country, you're very quickly in another country. And it's a nice road, it's very comfortable. Some people passing me at higher speeds. I'm sure they're driving faster than 130 kilometers an hour. So everything seems okay. If I find a nice restaurant on the highway to stop to eat something, I will probably do so. I'm planned to arrive at IKEA at 7 minutes before 7 without the stop, knowing that IKEA closes at 8 o'clock. Means that I don't have a lot of margin left, but I've noticed last time I've been in Paris that training material to take with me. Taking the Thalys, which I usually do the train between Brussels and Paris, was not an option because I really had too much stuff to carry, and I just had my Tesla Model S delivered, so I wanted to drive it as much as I can. So I decided to drive 3 weeks ago with the Model S to Paris. I must admit, without too much planning. I started in Brussels with actually I had 500 kilometers of ideal range. That was before I realized that typical range actually is more realistic than ideal range. So I had 500 kilometers of ideal range available. I started in Brussels and drove towards Paris. I was driving at 113 kilometers an hour the first time, and I was able to arrive in Paris in one go, in the city center, without any problem. I arrived in the parking that I had figured out that they had an EV parking spot. I drove my car inside of the parking, and I still had about 60 kilometers of ideal range left. But when I arrived in the parking spot, the connector for charging was not what we use as a standard in Europe. As you know, the standard in Europe is the Type 2 connector. Some people refer to it as the Mennekes connector. And apparently the connector there was or a Type 1 or a Type 3. And since I'm using Type 2, I wasn't able to charge there. But that's okay, that was plan A, so I left the Paris parking and I went to another parking space next to it. That was my plan B. And those are people that Tesla France called up to verify if they had EV spots for EV cars. Although they confirmed that EV spots available when I arrived there, I saw very big signs, EV parking spaces available, and I saw 3 green parking spots for EVs. 2 of them were occupied by an ICE car, internal combustion engine car, but the 3rd one was free. So I backed up my car, I took my Type 2 cable, my connector, plugged it in the car. I went to the wall, ready to plug it in, and then I noticed that there was no charging box or charging point available. So I went to the responsible person of that garage and I asked him, so where is your parking space for EVs? And he said, well, those are those 3 spaces. I said, okay, that's fine, but there is no charger yet. And then he answered me like I didn't expect. He said, well, you called us to ask for EV parking spaces, and those are 2 EV parking spaces. You didn't ask us for EV chargers, because the chargers have been ordered but have not been installed yet. So I had a big problem because I've lost some range from driving from one parking to the other. And I was not able to charge there. So I asked him if he didn't have just a standard power socket, because that should be enough to charge my car also. Since I was staying the night, I had a lot of time, and training all day, I had really a lot of time for charging. And there was actually a power socket available on the 9th floor. I don't know if you've been to Paris yet and Paris parking spaces, but I can tell you Paris is made for small cars, and the Tesla Model S is not a small car. So I drove up to the 9th floor and damaged a bit one of my rims by hitting the curb, which was painful after I only had the car for a week, but okay. I arrived at the top floor and I found 9 power sockets. So I thought, okay, I'm fine, I can charge here. I took the Tesla Schuko connector, the one that you get with the car. I plugged it in one of those power sockets, power going through, you can't charge. So I was looking for circuit breakers, which I found. I put them on, there was power on the power socket, and I actually started charging. Well, at least that's what I thought that was gonna happen. But the mobile connector, the UMC that I got from Tesla, with the Shuko connector, which is like the domestic power plug connector, didn't give a green light. It actually gave 3 red lights. And 3 red lights mean something like, yes, there is power on the socket, but we can't charge because you're missing some neuter, or the cables are not connected correctly. I don't know exactly why, but the result is I couldn't charge. So now I really got worried, because I was in Paris and my range dropped to 40 kilometers, and I still had to do like 336 kilometers back to Brussels. So I left the car in the parking space, I went to my hotel, I went to sleep, and I gave my training in the morning, and when I finished my training in the evening, around 5 p.m, I actually decided to charge at an IKEA nearby. Actually the IKEA where I'm driving to now, so I've had some experience with that IKEA. Cool thing with IKEA is they provide free power, and it's fast charging, so it charges about 32 amps at 3-phase, and actually gives you about 110 kilometers an hour charging, which is really fast. It's really nice. So I typed in the address in the GPS, and since I had my car parked there for a while, I had some vampire drain, and I still had 20 kilometers of range left on my dashboard. And this, keep in mind, is ideal range, so it was even less than what it would have. When I typed the address in my GPS informed me that I needed to drive 22 kilometers to the IKEA. So 22 kilometers what I needed, 20 kilometers is what I had on the car. So I can tell you I drove really slow. But getting out of Paris is driving slow anyway. I wasn't able to drive faster than 30 kilometers an hour for a long period. And after a while, I was on the highway towards IKEA, and when I had the exit of the highway, I still had about 8 kilometers left, and range. When I got to the IKEA, I still had 4 kilometers left. So I parked my car at the IKEA parking spot. I went inside and asked them where their EV charging point was. I went walking to the charging point, not to spend any range. And then I walked back to the car, and I drove very slowly to the charging point, which unfortunately was available. I parked my car at the charging point and I started charging. And there actually I had the possibility of charging 100 kilometers an hour. Now this was already like 7 p.m. And I had calculated I had to charge for about 4.5 hours. But as I told you, IKEA closes at 8 p.m. and I was worried for 2 things. One, if IKEA closes, does that mean that they shut down the power of the charging station? And 2, since it's in a commercial area, there are gates that close, and I was worried that the gates would close and I was not able to get back. To make a long story short, I was charging at the IKEA charging point. At 9 p.m. they actually shut down all the lights, so it got really dark and really spooky. And at around 10:30 p.m. I saw one of the gates close, which really got me sweating and got me worried. Of course, plan B is always you can always about 400 kilometers range in ideal range. So it's actually like I noticed that it was about ideal range is actually 70% real range. So if it says you have 400, it means that you have quite a bit of less real range available. So I left with the idea that I would be able to charge in Belgium. I drove all the way to Nivelles, and when I arrived at Nivelles in Belgium, just before Brussels, I still had about 20 kilometers of range left. I found a charging station nearby at the Van de Valk hotel, and I arrived at the charging station, but there was another car charging. It was a hybrid car, so I respect that EVs and hybrid cars are allowed to charge. So I went inside of the hotel, asked them if they knew who was the owner of the car. They didn't. So my second question to the clerk was, you still have room available? So I stayed the night in the Van de Valk hotel in Nivelles, and I left a paper under the window of the one that was charging with a very kind message asking him to send me a text message as soon as he would leave so I could come and charge, which he did. He actually called me up at 9 a.m. in the morning, and I started charging my Tesla. It was not a very fast connection, so actually I did charging for a whole day, and I actually took a taxi to the office in Brussels to work, and at night I actually came back to collect my car. So yes, it's possible to drive in one track to Paris, but in France they're not using the standard connectors, and as long as there is no type 1 to type 2 converter or a type 3 to type 2 converter, it's really hard to charge in France, unless you go to IKEA, of course. And since I love Swedish meatballs, I always take the opportunity to eat something in the IKEA restaurant when I'm there and charging for free. Well, the charging is for free, not Swedish meatballs. So the idea of this trip is to try and do better, meaning I'm driving now from Brussels to Paris, but I am actually taking my hotel next to the IKEA, so I'm able to charge in the IKEA at a high speed, and then tomorrow morning I will be driving into Paris, give my training, and then I will be driving back to Belgium with enough range in my car. That's the plan, and I'm hopeful that it will work. So here we go. It's 18:21, so 20 past 6 p.m. I still have about 170 kilometers of range to drive, and I still have 232 kilometers of range available on my speedometer. So I'm about halfway, and I've done, let me see here, I still have 146 kilometers to go. I did 164, and I still have 200 kilometers of range. I think it's time to stretch my legs and wash my hands, so that I will be able to continue. So since I don't have to take any gas, I can just continue to the parking space and park my car, wash my hands, then continue driving. Parking space for cars, and there are things that are not really cars. So plan B is be flexible. actually noticed with the new software upgrade dot 30 that the screen has changed a little bit to have a better view in looking backwards with the camera. I also tracking how I'm driving here. Okay, so here we go. Spot. Perfect.
So, quick lunch. Actually, quick dinner. Perhaps not healthy, but tastes really good.
This was actually a very good place to eat something. I had a quick, which is fast food, but I always enjoy it. This would actually be a very good place to have like Tesla superchargers, because there's quite a lot of options for eating, drinking, and even a little bit of shopping. And there's enough space to do it. So I think it's a nice opportunity to have a supercharger here. It's at the Oval, I think it's called, and it's a ESSO. So good ideas. Okay, we're back on the road. So let's see here. Still got 98 kilometers to go, and I still have a range of 137. So I'm still fine to get to the IKEA. But again, my margin just has become a bit smaller. But it should still be enough. So going back to 111 kilometers an hour, and then I start cruise control. Well, here we are, and cruise control. It's about 55 more minutes and I should arrive. It's now 8:01, so 8 o'clock p.m. I had a dinner at Quick. This took me about, I think the total stop time was about 30 minutes, since I ate something and I went to the toilet, washed my hands, of course. So 30 minutes was the time I took. So if a supercharger would be at that location, that would be really good, because well, if I can charge 320 kilometers in 22 minutes, imagine how much I can charge in 30 minutes while eating something and washing my hands. It's 8:29. I still have about well, less than 30 minutes to drive, 28 minutes still to drive. Total of 46 kilometers I still need to do, and I should arrive 2 minutes before 9 tonight. So average energy usage, it's somewhere between 228 and 226 watt hours per kilometer, which driving at 111 kilometers an hour is what you could expect. Battery wise, let me see here. So I still have 67 kilometers of range on the battery, but I still have 44 kilometers to do. So the margin I have between what I still have to do and what I still have in the battery does get smaller every hour. I'm guessing it's because I'm driving probably a bit too fast for the battery for a good range, but 111 kilometers will probably get me to the IKEA just before getting into Paris, where I will charge at about 110 kilometers an hour, something like that, 3-phase, 32. I think it's even 63 amps. I'll check when we're there. So it's getting a bit close, but still got enough range to get there, so I'm not too worried about that. I must say it's actually very comfortable driving the Tesla Model S for long distances. Normally I don't take the car for long distances. Usually when I need to go to Paris, I take the Thalys. It's a train between Brussels and Paris, which is convenient. But actually now driving the Tesla Model S, it's very comfortable, and I really enjoy driving this car. So if I have to choose between sitting in a train or driving my Model S, I will choose driving my Model S. Actually, I think it's also cheaper driving the Model S because I'm actually charging at the IKEA charging points, and they're still free. So my hats off to IKEA for providing free electricity for EV drivers. And I think they should get some kind of award, because for me that's really going green, supporting EV drivers like they do. And actually for me it's until the Tesla supercharging network is completely rolled out in Europe, using the IKEA fast chargers will probably get you all around Europe, which is amazing. So kudos to the guys of IKEA, and thank you very much for providing the free electricity and actually fast charging, which we really appreciate. So let me see, 25 minutes to go, 40 kilometers, and still 59 range in my battery. It should be fine. So I'm arriving at the Paris péage. Somewhere halfway I got like a péage ticket, which I'm actually going to use now to go through and pay the péage. So here we go. Let's see here. Ooh, there's police here. That's interesting. The police are stopping many cars. I'm wondering why. Okay, so I have to put this in here, and then I can put my credit card inside also to pay. Get a receipt. Here it is, and I'm ready to go. Voila, we're off. And there, police is actually checking cars. That's cool. Well, they didn't check me, so that's fine. We're losing it. I'm thinking they're looking for something. So we're off again. Last stretch. 22 minutes to drive, and 33 kilometers with still 52 kilometers of range. It should be fine. Interesting thing is that the color of the battery changed just now when I reached 51 kilometers. So it used to be green, and now actually you see it's kind of amber color, yellowish. This is actually informing you that you're getting to the last part of your battery. So I've arrived at IKEA, and as you can see, the lights are off because closing time for IKEA is 8 o'clock. It's now just 9 o'clock. So I only hope that the parking is still open, which it seems it is. And second of all, I hope that the charging station is free and available so that I can start charging. So this is the underground parking, and this charging station is just, oh, they already turned off the lights even. Ooh, I see a car from Hertz, but it's not charging where I want to charge, so that's fine. So I can go and drive here and start charging. Voila. Here we go. That's close enough. So, battery low. Talking about good timing. We recommend charging now, so there will be significantly less energy available from your battery if it gets colder. We recommend charging now. So we've arrived at IKEA, and if I look at my battery, I still have 15 kilometers left, and 15 is enough. So I'm here. I will charge now all night. I will stay in a hotel here, and then tomorrow morning I will drive into the center of Paris. So Brussels to Paris, looks like we achieved our goal and we have arrived. So I've connected the cable. Now I want to charge. Let's see here. Charger vos véhicules. Ici. Connect. I confirm it's connected.